Assalamu alaikum and salam sejahtera. Welcome to Channel 5 News. I am Abu Hafidz and with my colleague Aiman, today we'll be presenting on globalization and issues in education. Globalization. Globalization is a complex phenomenon that has far-reaching effects. Globalization may refer to the transfer of adaptation and development of values, knowledge, technology, and behavioral norms across countries and societies in different parts of the world. The typical characteristics of globalization includes the growth of global networking, such as internet and transportation. The United Nations Development Programme (UNDP) described globalization as the increasing interdependence between world inhabitants on economic, technological, cultural, as well as political level. With the definition of globalization, now we can see the relationship between globalization with education. There is an apparent proof that education is interdependent among countries in the world, and we can see that some countries adopted others' approach on education. Even in Malaysia, for example, we adopted the Common European Framework of References for Language (CFR) as the standard for describing our nation's students' English language ability. In addition, globalization in education promotes huge advantages such as global sharing of knowledge, skills, and intellectual assets that are necessary to multiple developments at different levels. Next, mutual support, supplement, and benefit to produce synergy for various developments of countries, communities, and individuals. In addition, globalization creates values and enhancing efficiency through the global sharing and mutual support to serving local needs and growth. Furthermore, globalization also promotes international understanding, collaboration, harmony, and acceptance to cultural diversity across countries and regions. Lastly, globalization facilitates communications, interactions, and encouraging multicultural contributions at different levels among countries. Even though globalization in education has a number of positive remarks, there are also some drawbacks that can be found, such as increasing the technological gaps and digital divides between advanced countries and less developed countries, causing them to fall far behind and requires them a huge impact on the economy if they want to catch up with the progress, such as borrowing more money from the IMF to fund for the education to close the gap between them and advanced countries. Creating more legitimate opportunities for a few advanced countries for a new form of colonization of developing countries where countries are forced to rely on advanced countries in terms of education. For example, the increasing amounts of expatriates from advanced countries in the developing countries' educational field. Next, increasing inequalities and conflicts between areas and cultures, such as westernization of a developed country due to promoting the dominant cultures and values of some advanced countries. In order to be globally competent, Malaysia needs to produce a globally competent workers. To produce globally competent workers, our country has been making changes in their education in order to fulfill the demand of being globally competent. Vision 2020 that was established in 1991 by Tun Dr. Mahathir has aspired the nation to achieve the status of developed nation. Othman in 2012 states that in her research regarding the trend of education in Malaysia, the realization that education is the key towards becoming a developed country and produce manpower who can compete and be resilient toward the challenges of globalization can be seen clearly from her findings, showing that increasing trend in the demand for education, internationalization, lifelong learning, and generic skills after the year 1995 and onwards. However, with all the findings in the research explained beforehand, our educational system cannot even compete with other Southeast Asian countries. 9 years ago, during the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) 2012's Program for International Student Assessment (PISA), which an exam testing on 15-year-olds on mathematics, science and reading. Vietnam, a country with smaller GDP than Malaysia, was ranked 17th out of 65 countries, above Malaysia's 52nd spot. According to the International Monetary Fund (IMF), in 2019, Malaysia has still not yet achieved the title of developed country, despite a rapid growth since 5 decades ago. This is very disappointing since neighboring countries such as Singapore has achieved the title of developed country and rank among the top 32 countries together with Denmark, Sweden, Uruguay, Canada, New Zealand and others. Nevertheless, we are still on the right track, and perhaps after the year 2020, we have achieved the title of developed country. Before we move further, let's take a look at transnational education, which is the best trend for globalization, with my colleague Vera. Hello?
Hello?
Vera, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
Globalization has paved the way for education market to expand internationally. How many of you dreams of studying abroad? How many of you wanted to study in another country? We do not always get the opportunity to study abroad. That's why transnational education is essential, as it provides us with the golden opportunity to study foreign courses locally. So what is transnational education? Some of you might heard of it, whereas others might not. The Global Alliance for Transnational Education 1997 defines transnational education as any teaching or learning activity in which the students are in a different country to that on which the institution providing the education is based. Basically, transnational education allows students to earn a foreign degree online at local campus of a partnering institution or local outpost of foreign institution. In a much simpler word, TNE is when a university in country A provides educational services across a national border to students in country B. According to Transnational Education, Global Location, Local Innovation 2018, 49% of TNE is in Asia, followed by Africa with 22%. 11% of TNE is in EU, whereas 10% of TNE is in Middle East. TNE in North America, other Europes, Australasia, and South America are 5%, 3%, 1%, and 0.3% respectively. TNE is becoming an increasingly important component of internalization. A number of host countries are developing regional education hubs and use incentives to attract foreign universities and programs, which proves how important TNE is. There are several underlying factors that increase the prevalence of TNE programs, including rising income levels in developing countries, improvements in terms of technology, and the importance of intercultural skills requirements in an increasingly globalized and interdependent world. In developing countries where demand for tertiary education is growing, the domestic education systems are not expanding fast enough to meet the demand. As such, TNE actually offers the opportunity for both sending and receiving countries to meet those demands. There are many examples of TNE in Malaysia, such as University of Nottingham, University of Greenwich, University of Southampton, Newcastle University, Lancaster University, and Liverpool John Moores University, among others. There are a few common forms of TNE. The first one is franchising and twinning programs. A sending institution authorizes a host institution to deliver the sending country's university program with no curricular input by the host institution. The qualification is awarded and quality assured by the sending institution. The host's primary responsibility is the delivery of the program, but the sending institution may assist with delivery of the program by providing flying teaching faculty. Students' recruitment and facilities will be done and provided by the host. Franchise programs are typically 3+0 or 4+0, with all study taking place in the host country, whereas twinning program is 2+1, whereby the student completes the study in the sending country. The second one is branch campus. The sending institution establishes a standalone satellite operation known as an international branch campus in the host country, and is responsible for all aspects of recruiting, admission, program delivery, and awarding of the qualification. In addition to faculty employed from the parent institution, the IBC may employ local and/or international faculty to assist with the teaching. The third one is articulation agreements, which allow students who have completed a specified curriculum in the host country to apply to a sending country program and enroll with advanced standing. The fourth one is dual or double degree programs. This means that two or more partner institutions in different countries collaborate to design and deliver a common program. Mobility of students and faculty between the partner institutions varies by program. The student receives a qualification from each partner institution, which means one student will receive two or more qualifications for the completion of one program. The sixth is validation programs. This refers to the process by which a sending institution judges whether a program developed and delivered by a host institution is of an appropriate quality and standard to lead to a degree from the sending institution. And the last one is online learning and distance education programs. Under this delivery mode, programs and courses are delivered through televisions, satellites, radios, computers, conferencing, and other technological means across national boundaries. Why? Why TNE? According to Wilkins and Jusola 2018, advantages of TNE for home country include developing foreign language skills, culturally aware and accepting of other cultures, and improving the learning experience. This means that students in the home country are able to develop foreign language skills. They can learn how to accept cultures of other countries and enhance their learning experience. Wilkins and Jusola 2018 also revealed the advantages of TNE in the host country, such as increasing the higher education capacity, satisfy labor market skills needed, and reduce brain drain. Another study by Jiaming Ma, Chili Li, and Minmingu 2019 claimed that TNE can expose students to the cultures and learning environments, different forms of learning and teaching practice, as well as more than one understanding of a concept. They also assert that TNE provides a new, fresh, and different foreign education experience. Lastly, there will be less culture shock when they are traveling to a foreign country, as they are already exposed to the cultures, traditions, and the way of life in that particular country. However, TNE does has its own disadvantages. First is learning shock. Students who find themselves exposed to unfamiliar learning and teaching methods, bombarded by unexpected and disorienting cues, might feel overwhelmed and anxious, which can hinder the teaching and learning process. Next is language barrier. English is not our first language, so there are bound to be language barrier because we are not a native speaker. Some students might have limited vocabulary and some might be lacking in terms of fluency and proficiency in English language. Last but not least is cultural differences. There will always be cultural differences in education because students come from different background and culture. It is crucial to acknowledge these differences so it will not obstruct the transfer of knowledge from one to another. Before we go back to the studio, I just want to end my report with a quote from Abigail Adams. Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and diligence. My name is Devyiane Delvera Dusi, and that marks the end of my report for transnational education. Let's head back to the studio.
Thank you, Delvera, for the report. Now, moving on to the next section with Aiman. Aiman, please.
Thank you, Abu. Good day, everyone. My name is Muhamad Aiman Hakimi bin Husin, and here are the headlines. For years, brain drain has been a big issue that occurs for the developing countries. And Malaysia dealing with brain drain as talented Malaysians started to migrate abroad. Brain drain, or human capital, is an immigration of trained and talented individuals, also called human capitals, to other nations or jurisdictions. These individuals usually migrated to developed countries such as the United States of America, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and etc. Brain drain can occur either when individuals who study abroad and complete their education do not return to their home country, or when individuals educated in their home country emigrate for higher wages or better opportunities. So, what are the causes of brain drain? There are several factors fueling brain drain, and the factors can be divided into two: push factors and pull factors. Push factors are what the home countries that pushes them away from staying in their home country. Here are some of the reasons for push factors. First one is insufficient opportunity for research and higher study. This is very crucial as when there is an opportunity to study abroad, there is sure percentage that those people would continue living there and also get a job there as well. This relates with the next reasons, which is underemployment and low wage salary in their home country. Why would they come back and do the same job but gets paid way less than any at the developed country? They might also desire for a better urban life and better career expectation. Other reasons for push factors are lack of freedom, discrimination in appointment and promotion, poor working facilities, poor health and education service, lack of satisfactory working conditions, political instability in home countries, lack of information and misguidance, and also civil war. Now, for pull factors, on the other hand, are what the developed countries would offer for these people to migrate. Some of these reasons for these people to migrate are that the country offers modern educational system and better opportunity for higher qualifications. This would lead to better employment opportunities, higher salary and income, better working condition, and better level of living and way of life. Usually, developed countries have access to better technology. For example, most developed countries have access to self-driving car like Tesla. So there will be a technological gap between the two countries. Now, why is brain drain critical? Brain drain involves flight of human capital from one country to another. Therefore, skilled professionals are prepared in one country but are invested in another country. Investment in higher education is lost when trained people leave their countries to work and live in another country and usually will not return back to their home country. Moving on to consequences of brain drain. For the developing countries, they will lose talented human capital that could help the country. As a result, setbacks in the development of the country as not enough talented human capital are there. The developing country will also need to find a replacement to take over the talented human capital that they have lost and teach them of the knowledge that they need to know to pass on to the next generation. There will also be a stigma whereby people would think that moving abroad will lead to a successful life, which will then encourage others, talented human capital, to also leave their home country. The developed countries, on the other hand, will become more developed as they will have many experts to solve their internal problems. But there are some downside to it, which is locals will be less employed as foreign workers takes their jobs. Moving on to brain drain that is happening in Malaysia. One of the main reasons of brain drain in Malaysia is because of the Malaysian policies and the quota sets for education. This had led to Chinese and Indians whom were not able to get into public universities to choose universities abroad. Many young individuals chose to stay and work in foreign countries after having completed their higher education, as they feel comfortable living there and they know that they would get paid more compared to Malaysia. Some wanting to come back but are forced to stay overseas due to the lack of opportunities back home. The Malaysian economy is primarily centered around production and manufacturing, rather than research and development. Therefore, talented human capitals are not used to what it is intended to do. The government is also not making enough effort to entice and encourage Malaysian professionals overseas to come back and contribute to the country. Here are some data regarding human brain in Malaysia. 1 in 10 skilled Malaysian choose to leave the country and apply their trade and skills elsewhere. Did you know that there are currently about 1,700,000 Malaysians that lives outside of Malaysia? And other alarming information is that 5,000 Malaysians give up their citizenship yearly. To better understand about this topic, let's hear from our colleague in Kudat who will cover on brain gain. Beverly, are you there?
Yes. Thank you, Newsroom. Good day to everybody. Just now we've heard the information regarding brain drain. In this section, I will continue to elaborate about brain gain. When one's lost, another gain. Brain gain is the total opposite of brain drain. By definition, brain gain is an increase in the number of highly trained foreign-born professionals entering a country to live and work where greater opportunities are offered. These phenomenon usually happens between developed countries and underdeveloped countries. For this section, I will report on measures taken by some countries to promote brain gain in the education perspective. A promising strategy to promote brain gain is by investing on quality education, especially in tertiary education. A case point is in Australia. In 2017, 799,371 international students were enrolled in education programs in Australia. Of these, there were 44% of which international students enrolled in the higher education sector. As per the survey conducted of international students graduating from Australian universities, it has been drawn that 71% to 79% of international graduates have a full-time job in Australia. On average, about 25% of foreign students in the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) countries stay in their host country upon graduation. In the US, about 2/3 of all foreign-born PhDs remain in the country. And the share of Indian and Chinese PhD students who intend to stay in the US after completing their theses even exceeds 80%. Additionally, according to recent estimates by OECD, investing in the tertiary education of international students can turn out to be very beneficial to the host countries. This is because the net public return per student amounts to over 90,000 USD. These figures take into account the impact of higher education on tax revenues, social security contributions, and social transfers. In countries with predominantly public university sector like Australia, France, Germany, the UK, and the US, to attract brain gain, governments can intervene more directly and allocate resources to strengthen support programs for foreign students. This includes tutorials for students from specific countries and transition courses to bridge the gap between the education system of the student's home country and of their host country. Many countries, particularly those outside the English-speaking world, have set up specific international programs in English geared towards the needs of foreign students. Another measure also includes providing foreign students with the necessary professional, language, and cultural skills at a university in the host country. This local education then facilitates the integration of foreign students into the labor market of the host country. In addition to that, it also promotes a culturally enriched learning environment for domestic students. These effects constitute a positive externality from international students and graduates on the host countries. Relating to professional skills, additional investments in tutors, language courses, and international programs are also part of the investment taken by the government of the host country. These investments go beyond improving the overall country of study programs, which would also benefit domestic students and may include a specific program aimed at foreign students only. Indeed, there is evidence that various countries have successfully launched policies to lure foreign students to their universities. According to OECD, for instance, such policies are part of a broader strategy to foster socio-economic development in countries such as Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. By contrast, countries with a strong private university sector may resort to indirect measures like funding public academic exchange services. Such services may not only provide scholarships, but also initiate programs to promote the integration of foreign students into the host country. For instance, consider the German Academic Exchange Services, or DAT as they call it. The DAT offered scholarships for foreign students. DAT also offered financial support for 39 international doctoral programs at German universities and for the STIBET initiative. STIBET is a combined scholarship and guidance counseling program that supports foreign students and doctoral candidates at German universities, and it is supposed to make Germany more attractive and more competitive as a place of study. There is an international competition between potential host countries in terms of their education subsidies, so there are differences in terms of quality and fees. Some countries will offer high education quality with high tuition fees, while some other countries tend to offer average quality programs at a lower price. New Zealand is an excellent example of good educational quality and lower tuition fees. This results to the attraction of migration. Educating foreign students is an explicit part of a socio-economic development strategy in some Asian Pacific countries. In this context, New Zealand has not only increased its educational quality in the last decades, but also lowered tuition fees for international students since 2005 to the same level as those paid by domestic students. This policy change has made New Zealand a much more appealing destination for international students. And because of that, New Zealand appeared to become a tough competitor for brain gain, along with some other countries. In the Malaysian context, Malaysia aims to double its international enrollments to 250,000 by 2025. In 2019, according to media reports, Malaysia was hosting 127,583 international students as of March, 70% of which were in private higher education institutions, while the remaining 30,341 international students were enrolled in public higher education institute. Malaysia is also an excellent country for international students to study because they will be able to study for an international qualifications very affordably. The cost of living is also low, allowing students to have a comfortable and affordable lifestyle. In addition, international students here will experience the diverse cultures and have the chance to travel cheaply around the region. Moreover, working during semester breaks is also permissible by law. Of course, opting to stay in Malaysia after graduating is also possible. What's important is to manage the visa well. However, in terms of career, the jobs offered by the country is very limited. Some of the occupations popular amongst international students are electrical and electronics, ICT, aerospace, petrochemicals, oil, gas and energy, education, telecommunications and multimedia, financial services as well as medical services. Major recruiters in Malaysia for international students are Maxis, Maybank, Axiata, Sime Darby and Public Bank. Finding a job in Malaysia, especially for international students, is not as easy as it may seem. One needs to have exceptional academic qualification and skills needed to get a job. Nevertheless, where there is a will, there is a way. As long as one is willing to work hard, the future will be brighter than ever. And that concludes my report for today. I'm Beverly Issabelle, reporting from Kudat. Back to Newsroom.
Thank you, Beverly. Malaysia is among the most preferred destination for tertiary education. So, Malaysia should further invest in the education quality and its policy to attract more brain gain. Not only that, Malaysia needs to find a solution to recall back the talented human capital that are abroad to return home. It is time to work together to build a better nation towards embracing plurality. Now that we have talked about brain drain and brain gain, let's hear from our colleague Iman in Plaza Alam Central, whom will cover about brain waste and brain circulation.
Thank you, Sir Pintas. Due to the ongoing pandemic hit in Malaysia, Ong Kiang Ming, the former Deputy Minister of International Trade and Industry, pointed to DOSM's Malaysia Economic Statistics Review, which showed that the percentage of underemployment has gone up from 2.3% in the first quarter of 2019 to 5.3% in 2020. Ong said that due to the movement control order, businesses have reduced operation hours, which typically resulted in lower salaries and wages received, particularly in semi-skilled and low-skilled jobs. However, Research for Social Advancement (REFSA) said that underemployment is an issue that is rarely addressed compared to unemployment. Hafidz Shams, a visiting fellow at REFSA, said if the issue is left unaddressed, there is a risk that Malaysia will be faced with higher levels of underemployment and unemployment compared to before the crisis brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Unemployment and underemployment are two unfavorable outcomes in the market, which lead to a phenomenon called brain waste. Brain waste, which is also known as skills underutilization, refers to college graduates who cannot utilize their skills and education in the workplace despite their high professional qualifications. Brain waste describes a situation with skill downgrading where an individual is working in a job that requires a skill level lower than the one he or she has acquired. In other words, brain waste arises when a skilled individual incurs the cost of taking education, but he or she does not reap the benefits of human capital acquisition. Brain waste comprises two outcomes: unemployment and underemployment. Unemployment occurs when a person who is actively searching for employment is unable to find work. Underemployment is the work by the highly skilled in low-skilled jobs, that is, jobs that require only moderate on-the-job training or less. For example, home health aides, personal care aides, maids and housekeepers, taxi and truck drivers, and cashiers. These occupations typically require a high school diploma or less. According to Soto, Washington State was home to 179,000 highly skilled immigrants with at least a bachelor's degree in the period from 2009 to 2013. However, only 22% constitute of 49,000 people working in a low-skilled job, underemployment, or unemployed. In comparison, the rate of brain waste in Washington State is almost on par with the rate nationwide, which is 25%. These are the factors that drive brain waste: a place of education, English proficiency, level of degree, legal status or citizenship, gender, time in the United States, race and ethnicity, and lastly, region and country birth. Brain circulation emphasizes the two-way flow of skilled workers between home and host countries. It is presumably a positive form of mobility involving scientists and researchers, as well as other highly skilled professionals moving in and out of different geographic regions, and hence increasing the diffusion of knowledge. Brain circulation has become possible because of several important developments. Firstly, globalization. The growing economic interdependence has meant that countries around the world are more interconnected with each other than at any other previous time in history, which leads to brain circulation. Secondly, the reduction in immigration and emigration barriers to the movement have made it easier for people to relocate across countries. There is also an increased number of countries, including the US, Canada, and many European Union countries, permit dual citizenship, thus facilitating this mobility across nations. Lastly, the emergence of the concept of boundary-less careers, where highly qualified people are increasingly willing to change jobs across international boundaries in search of more satisfying careers. Vervet stresses that a variety of policymakers within national and international institutions are advocating measures to facilitate the movement of highly skilled migrants who are working both in their homelands and in foreign countries. Their main idea is that brain circulation systems could be managed in ways that bring proverbial win-win-win results. Benefits for receiving countries through meeting labor market shortages, for sending countries through guarantee and remittance for development, and for migrants themselves through offering employment and control over the use of their wages. India, China, Korea is a good example of such success. These countries organize effective policies which help to pull their scientists, researchers back to the motherland or to collaborate with the local actors, thus developing countries' economy as well as competitiveness in the knowledge-based world. The 21st century marked a turning point for the Indian IT sector as US-educated Indian engineers began to return home and the brain circulation between the United States and India accelerated. The range of public policies in the 1980s and 1990s has given a big boost to the software sector. All these efforts started yielding results in the 1990s and particularly after 2000 as export-oriented software firms grew at an average of 20 to 25% per year for a decade. The issues of brain drain, brain gain, brain circulation, and brain waste are not totally disasters, but they are indeed realities of the knowledge-based economy. Knowledge workers are necessary mobile people, and their mobility must be managed proactively by making the domestic environment attractive and simultaneously maximizing countries' development. Investment in the education system and the science and technology system as a whole resulted in the funding of highly qualified human resources. That was the news of truth and accuracy of current education issues, education and globalization issues from Group 8. We are hoping everyone is in good condition and hope you have a great day ahead. Stay safe, keep your social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, and cut contact with other people. This is Iman from Channel 5 News.